Welcome to the Nick, Dick, and Paul show. We have a very exciting episode today because we are actually going to talk about a bunch of different things. We're not going to stick to one topic. We're going to talk about slop, Crumbl cookies, tariffs, SpaceX. I mean, you name it. We got it all today. It's like a Nick, Dick, and Paul buffet.
What do all those things have in common? I think we could probably all come up with. I don't
What
actually
do
know
all
the
those
answer to that,
things
but we
have
should
in
try to come
common?
up with what they all have in common. They're all too big to fail. Even the Crumbl cookie, especially the Crumbl cookie.
Should we just start with the Crumbl cookie?
The Crumbl
Can we
cookie,
start?
that should be the tagline of the Crumbl cookie. Too big to fail.
Too big to fail. I've never seen anything quite like the Crumbl cookie. Paul sent the ingredients the other day. And Paul, you want to tell us what this is? Is this is this the end of the world?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a terrific cookie. I have no idea, but it's giant. It's just what is it, like 1,000 calories? My objection was that it's they do that classic thing of saying portion sizes, and the portion sizes were 200, which imply or 250 maybe, which implied people. Yeah. Which implies people eat these cookies in like 4 bites, which is obviously ridiculous. They just eat them.
Well, it implies they only eat a quarter of a cookie.
Yeah. That's not happening. There's no chance that's happening. But it's just startling. This company has just exploded over the last probably 4 years or something like that. And, I'm sure they're all lovely people and they're doing their absolute best to keep their kids in the best private schools, but the cookies are lethal. It's remarkable that these things even exist now.
To be fair, 1,000 calories is in one of the higher calorie count Crumbl cookies. Most of them are only 700 calories.
Yeah.
And 60
that's right.
grams of sugar.
Well, isn't like a normal cookie like 100 calories? Just like a normal, typical chocolate chip cookie.
I don't
what
think
are
so.
they putting? What are they putting in this cookie
More.
to make it
What
more?
they're putting in is more.
Sugar with a sugar chaser would be my guess.
Yeah.
Here's my
More of
question, though.
everything.
Here's my question: is this all just part of the whole Instagram, social media,
you know what?
destroy the world?
That's the most interesting thing about it, because I had zero idea, and I have zero idea about many things, but I had zero idea that the thing that was really driving this was color palette. That it's basically a play on having something colorful and new in your Instagram feed, and they're under huge pressure, they being Crumbl, to constantly release not necessarily new flavors. Flavors are incidental. The thing that they really have to release is new colors. Sure, fine. It's got new flavors and different sugar and whatever else, but it's really just the colors that drive people to gram about it, and then in turn drive, influencers and whomever to have people come to the store so they can take pictures of it. The idea that food's been reduced to a color palette is just seriously whack.
When they run out of colors, will the company crumble?
Good one. Yeah, I have a hunch that if you've ever looked at Pantone, we have a long way to go. There's a lot of colors out there. This is the Pantonification of diet. So
None of you guys have ever tried one of these things, right?
I've never even seen one in the wild.
I was just going to say I've seen one in the wild because there's a Crumbl store in the West Village in New York, but I have not had one. I've seen people leaving the huge line outside the store. When
It's one of those line places?
It's kind of like what you also need to know about the Crumbl cookie, which I said as if I am an expert.
Yeah, please carry on. I want to hear more.
Is that there are Crumbl cookie drops, much like there would be shoe drops.
Yeah.
You got to be at the spot the new Crumbl cookie is dropping on the day it drops, which is when there are big lines, to be, TikToking or whatever, highlighting the new cookie that you were an early trier of. So those are the big Crumbl cookie moments when there's a whole line there. And the thing that strikes me about the Crumbl cookie that Paul mentioned is that it's the color, along with the sort of the silly name of the flavor. So I always sort of imagine the in the Crumbl creative lab that some guy's saying,
That's right.
a great idea for the pumpkin spice cookie, and the other guy's going, we already did orange, you moron. We need a purple cookie. What's something that tastes purple?
That's right. No, it's really. I just think the idea of reducing
Stop
food
calling
completely,
me a moron.
but reducing food completely to aesthetic is just such a natural extension of everything that's going on, right? I mean, who cares what it tastes like? The colors are terrific, and I can fill my Instagram feed with it. This is just. It's like art. It's like art theory taken to its limit, where it's just this idea of the art is irrelevant. I don't even care what the painting is of. I just like that there's this aesthetic that I can talk about, and it's now cookies as an aesthetic.
Well, speaking of crumbling, you like the segue? See where I'm going with this?
That is what we call a smooth transition.
I've been doing a lot of reading about shorts, and in China, it actually makes up for $7.3 or $4 billion in revenue. It's bigger than the theatrical there. It's about $1.4 billion in the U.S., but growing. And of course, they're the most ridiculous things on earth. Like my husband is a secret vampire, homeless billionaire is one.
Why are they all
good one?
I know we've talked about this, but why are they all vampires all the time? They're the one that I tried to come up to listen to and watch to come up to speed on was my boyfriend is a hockey player and a vampire, and my dad owns the pro hockey team secretly. My dad secretly owns the pro hockey team that my boyfriend plays for. But so like someone's always a billionaire and someone's always a vampire, but why I just don't get why someone's always a vampire.
I think it's because they're targeting.
I want answers.
I think so. I talked to the CEO of Real Shorts. I forget. I mixed them up, or Short Reels. I don't know. I think it was Real Shorts. Chinese guy. He looked like he was 6 or 7. He was probably 26 or 27. But I mean, the numbers are astounding. Like he was telling me that they're pulling in 3-4 million a day. In revenue. It's crazy. They're reinvesting all of it back into ads, but
I was going to say it's all going back out the door again.
It's all going back. It's going to Face. I think a couple million goes into Facebook ads specifically because they're targeting women in the Midwest who are like stay-at-home moms,
female vampire lovers.
Yeah, who are reading those cheesy like airport romance novels because they don't have romance in their life, and for some reason they found.
Wow, that was talking about jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, that's gratuitous.
Well, also the funny thing is that one of their other more popular.
I don't get enough vampire in my real life, so I have to go to the shorts for it.
That's right.
There's a new segment that is rising in popularity, which is quote unquote the DILFs. Do you guys know what a DILF is?
Do I want to know?
I'm a DILF.
Oh,
do you not know what a DILF is?
Double income, low tolerance.
Dad?
F. Dad, I'd like to fuck.
Oh, I see.
I heard the rest of it. So it's just dad?
It's what?
It's just dad.
Dads?
It's the dad version of it's DILF Island.
It's a dad version. I guess women want DILFs and then they want vampires. But men are not into these shows apparently yet. But I think they are. Okay, so let me just keep going. So the reason the men are not into them is because they're not into vampires and DILFs. However, for the most part, they're now starting to do horror because that's what the male viewers want. And so the horror is equally as ridiculous. Like it's like horror porn where they're like the girls are like half undressed and whatever. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because it's a massive, massive, massive growing industry, and and everywhere in Hollywood, no one in the big Netflix, Paramount, all those places are not Warner. They're not doing anything. It feels like Disney is the first to actually kind of want to try this out through Sora.
Oh, I think that's usually true, but I also think if you kind of, I don't know, abstract up a level, like a lot of this is about how content has become so algorithmic and engineered. The reason why vampires are everywhere and why DILFs, MILFs, whatever, It's because it works, and the algorithm says it works. And since the algorithm says it works, you do more of it, and then you do even more of it, and this breeds this homogenization. And it's because it's algorithmic and engineered. This isn't content. This is content that the audience is only secondary. The real audience is running on a data center somewhere, and it's a GPU. That's the real audience for this stuff, right? It's really just unsleeping GPUs inside of some data center in Northern Virginia that said that stuff works. And that's what's driving everything. And that's what people miss here, is that the human audience is weirdly secondary.
It's the great Tony Shalhoub line from the Coen Brothers movie Barton Fink, where he says he's having trouble writing the movie. And Shalhoub says, it's a wrestling picture. What do you want, a roadmap? Like, these things are all going to be basically the same version. Like
and you don't get punished for that. You're not punished for doing that, so you're going to see even more of it. And it's the same reason why I find it amazing if you ever scroll through like an Instagram feed, which is obviously completely like toxically algorithmic with all the same things. Yeah. It's increasingly people saying, oh, other people do this thing that I do, which at one level is sort of interesting and reassuring that everyone has the same foibles you do. But then at a second level, it's like, you know why everyone does the same thing you do? Because you all live in the same Instagram reel and you're essentially the same person now, right? It's a homogenizing force, not just a reflection. It's actually shaping the reality.
No, it's crazy. My kids were on my phone, and they looked up a Mr. Beast video on YouTube Shorts. And now if I go to YouTube Shorts, it's all Mr. Beast. And it's so much so that I blocked the Mr. Beast app, and then he started appearing on other apps. Like, it was like a fucking horror movie, and I couldn't get rid of Mr. Beast. Like, he's on the Mark Rober thing, and I get rid of that. It's like, it's literally, the algorithm is so stupid.
Right.
And it thinks that's all I want to watch now.
I have an ancillary sort of thing that I was astonished about with these shorts, which is that people have a surprising amount of disposable income that I wouldn't have thought they had.
Yeah.
Like, who is spending these billions of dollars on a 90-second soap opera about the hockey player who got injured and the girlfriend's dad owns the team secretly? And then it's 90 seconds, and then you put another coin in the meter. Who has the money? Who's got all this money to do this that doesn't need it for like food and shelter and
shelter? Yeah.
No, it's totally true. It's absolutely true. You know what it reminds me of a little bit? You know that, like, those memes of like in Vegas where you just see the old people just pressing the button and there's hundreds of them. Like, it's that. They're literally just looking for that next little high.
And it's totally that.
They're just dropping the money.
But so is Reels, so is Instagram, feeds. All of these things are the same thing. That, as I said, the human's incidental. It's the algorithm that's the audience, and they just keep feeding the algorithm with stuff, and hopefully it just keeps engineering an audience out of it, and around it goes. And this is all of that. And I think that's a huge slice of what you'll see in the future because you get rewarded for it.
I about 2-3 months ago deleted Instagram and Twitter from my phone, and have not looked back, and do not miss it in the slightest. Like, I just feel so much better about myself. I do watch a lot of vampire love shows.
Can't get away from that stuff.
Yeah.
Can we talk about? I have no transition to this. We got three last topics to discuss. The first is one of them is Trump's tariffs. I have a question: if are they actually working? Are they like what the heck is going on?
Well, they can't not work. I mean, they're mathematically impossible not to work unless U.S. consumers stop buying things. Mathematically, they have to work because products come in, tariffs are applied, people pay the tariffs, money goes back to the U.S. government. Done. Right? There's just no way for them not to. The question then is, do they work in the sense that they're actually doing something that's productive, whether it is driving manufacturers to onshore production, which was one of the original stated goals, or forcing foreign companies to pay the tariffs, in which case it's not actually a tax on U.S. consumers. So those are the two ways in which you could say it, quote, works, right? Because mathematically it has to work unless either people stop buying things or never import another thing in their life, right? That's it. Those are the only ways you get away from this stuff, is either you stop buying, you never buy anything that's imported. So the manufacturing front, there seems like there's some activity going on. I don't know. It's very early days to say. But with respect to the foreign companies paying the tariffs, that's not the case according to most of the studies. In the 2018-19 period, when the tariffs were applied, it was 100% pass through. In the early days of this tariff, it was 25%. It's now risen to over 70 to 80% of the tariffs are being passed through. There's $200 billion, according to the latest numbers. Well, that's $200 billion that, for the most part, U.S. consumers are paying to the U.S. government. Now, you could say, well, some of that comes back in the form of social services and other things. It's paying for things U.S. consumers wanted. Okay, fine. But nevertheless, there's no point in trying to dodge the issue that it is $200 billion that's largely coming from U.S. consumers that's not being paid for the most part, by foreign companies.
And is it having the effect in any way, shape, or form on these foreign companies or countries like China and so on?
No, for the most part, it's just realigning relationships where China's now more and more working more directly with other Asian bloc countries. You're creating new power centers. None of them are going into, we're not tipping anyone into recession or depression or anything like that. It's not restructuring things in a way that's, I suppose, like geopolitically important to the United States. In some ways, it's making it a lot more fraught out there in terms of the relationship. So no, not really. I mean, so it's a bit of a mystery, and I'm actually on side with the idea that you want to call people out for the some of the early sins in the World Trade Organization, that some of these countries were brought in and had bad intent, if you will, China most obviously, and so reversing some of those relationships that allowed them to run like an export-centric economy that hurt the U.S. I have no particular problem with that, but let's not pretend that somehow magically it's all getting paid by people who don't live here. No, it's all getting paid by people who live here.
Listen, my couch is still held up in customs, so the tariffs are not working. It's very simple.
Yeah, that's right.
Where did you buy your couch from?
Don't worry about it. What, I'm going to tell you that it's going to get broadcast? Now I'm going to pay double tariffs.
That's right, exactly. The quote co-op will be after you.
Mexican-made couch that I stupidly routed through Italy, who's now double tariffed.
It's got the vampire illustrations all over
I'm
it.
just going to have to ship it through somewhere else now.
But it's interesting, like I saw Costco's now, like there's a case working its way through the Supreme Court in theory with respect to the current tariffs. But there's also now, some of the largest importers, like Costco most recently, I saw had joined a suit of other manufacturers about the legality of forcing them to pay these tariffs, because that's what happens. Again, that whenever the goods arrive on shore, the importer pays the tariff. And the only question is, what happens then? Do they eat it, or does it get applied in the form of higher prices? And the history says it almost always gets applied in the form of higher prices. And it's not that Costco is delighted about this. They're not happy about this at all. A, it's a pain in the ass having to introduce a new process for paying back all these tariffs. And two, they're not in the business of higher prices. That's not why Costco exists.
It's also constantly changing, so you can't tell which of these things were en route when the price was X versus when the price was Y. Then if they go away, then they, like, who's going to reimburse me for this thing that I haven't had time to replace.
Like it's Brownie in motion tariffs, right? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Whoops, changed again.
I think what's sad is like the smaller businesses. There's a Japanese cookware store near my house that I go to, and they have they import not just like Denobi pots and things, but also different soy sauces, and they stopped carrying all the foods because it was just too expensive for them, and no one was buying it. And so it's like you're seeing that pass through for the, like Costco and those guys. Yes, they're pissed and they can still deal with it. But it's these smaller businesses.
Oh yeah, because they're faced to basically have these constant, almost fluid prices, like a gas station where you've got like a digital sign and it just keeps going up and down all the time as the prices change. And it's like, dude, I cannot do this. This is not the way I can run a small business. And that's the unfortunate thing. And as I said, the weird part is that there are some ideas inside of the tariffs that aren't wrong with respect to some of the original trading relationships underneath the WTO, but the implementation is kind of whack in places. So that's an economics word, by the way. Kind of whack.
Kind of whack. See, that's why you taught at MIT.
Oh yeah. That's why I earn the big bucks for saying strange things.
One day you'll own a house.
Yeah, well, I want a yurt.
All right. We're going to move on to our next topic.
Speaking of yurts, please say that.
Speaking of yurts, actually, that's a great segue, because apparently this guy who's now worth $600 billion doesn't own his own house, which I find completely nonsensical. SpaceX is going to go public this year at $1.5 trillion. And I know you are both very skeptical of this?
No, I'm not skeptical of SpaceX.
Oh, you're not.
No.
Oh,
No, I'm not skeptical of SpaceX.
didn't you say it's like a big data play?
You know who you're talking? Do you even
Am I
know
on the
who
wrong
you're?
thread?
Do you even know who
Yeah,
you're?
no, wait. Paul did. Paul was throwing out some skepticals.
Oh, that's on the idea that it's like it's data centers in space, and you have to say that, by the way, with reverb, like data centers in space, like that. Anyways, it's that it's the idea of that. That's the part I was skeptical about. I have no particular issue with like trying to commercialize space launch and make it easier to get random things floating over the planet. But the idea that it's actually a data center play because we're going to repopulate space with 300 megawatt data centers is just. Let's just say people should take some thermodynamics courses because it just doesn't work. There's no way to do that.
You just talk about that a little bit because people are very much. Elon's been talking about that on X. Sorry, I almost said Twitter. Shame on me.
I still call it Twitter. I don't call it X.
I know, but he's been talking about that on X the last few days, and just talk through why it's sort of.
He's been talking about the space is cold.
Yeah,
that's the best. I love when people do that. Yeah, in space, no one can hear your data center cool.
Can we do that?
But there's a reason why no one can hear your data center cooling. It's because there's no air. And because there's no air, there's no convective cooling. And because there's no convective cooling, shit doesn't cool. Right? And so what you're forced to do to cool things like a 300 megawatt data center is you have to do what's called radiative cooling, right? Which is just like you've got to have a big surface area where I project all the heat out, right? I pump it out and then it goes out through, think of giant wings. So if you do the math, I was doing it the other day because it was really pissing me off. Like a 200 megawatt data center would have to have the equivalent of about 100 football fields worth of radiative space to cool it in space because you don't have convective cooling. I'm not having air or...
Wait, can you explain this in layman's terms? I just want to preface real quick.
Explaining it in layman's terms.
No, for like people listening that don't know what convective space and stuff like that.
I don't know how much more layman can you get than
I've never met a human being who gets more passionate than Paul about data centers.
About radiative cooling?
I was going to say
about all of it.
Oh, no, I don't get passionate about it. I just get annoyed because people say dumb things. So I guess that's the same thing, isn't it? It's kind of it's a fungible position. So what bugs me about it is this idea that, I guess you said, like space is cold. Data centers like cold things because they generate a lot of heat, whether it's a 10 megawatt data center, 300 megawatt data center. The megawatts are just, energy being used. The energy has to be dissipated as heat. Dissipating heat requires either you blow air over them through these expensive air conditioners. You can have liquid cooling. You have to worry about things like the location on the rack and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, dude, I got a solution for this. Space is really freaking cold, man. Let's put data centers out there and then we don't have to do convective cooling. But the problem, of course, is there's also no air there. When you have convection, that's wind, right? There's no wind in space to blow across the data center and cool them. So the notion of convective cooling goes out the window. So you have to find a new way to cool these very hot things. So, and then it gets even worse because radiation gets more effective, radiative cooling, meaning I project it out and through these giant football field arms of my space-based data center out of Tom Swift or something. And so it gets even worse because radiative cooling gets better the more energy you dissipate. So the hotter it gets, so your inclination should be to run the data center to higher heat because then it radiates more out into space through these football field-sized arms that radiate the heat. But then the problem, of course, is there's this unfortunate side effect that your GPU dies in about 3-4 weeks because you have to run it at such a high temperature that the thermal breakdown of the GPUs, which is bad on Earth, is way worse in space. So this is like a no-winner proposition in every single way. It's really remarkable to see people going on about this.
So I would just like to point out, for posterity's sake, that Paul's layman terms explanation of all this, as opposed to his previous explanation of all this, only added, you have to cool these very hot things.
That's true. At least I didn't introduce the Stephen Boltzmann law.
Otherwise, the exact same explanation. I just want to say one thing. I'll say one thing about going back to your original question about SpaceX going public at 1.5 trillion. I think there are a couple. So, and the reason I'm not skeptical about it is I think Starlink's usage has barely begun to penetrate, the total addressable market it's got in front of us. And anyone who's used mobile Starlink anywhere in the world can tell you how much more superior it is to anything else out there. It's just so much better. I mean, you can imagine a point at which most of the cell phones in the U.S. are running on Starlink, and would be delightful. And then the second interesting thing about that is that, and I know people are starting to talk about this, but you've got likely also Anduril and also OpenAI and also Anthropic going public in the same year. And those are $400 of billions to $1 trillion companies that are going to kick out our hitherto unseen amount of wealth back into obviously concentrated wealth, but crazy amount of wealth back into the American economy in concentrated form, and mint a remarkable number of mega millionaires.
Yeah.
It's going to have interesting, and I don't know what kind of, but interesting consequences, because it always
That's
does.
why I was like, I sent you guys this, where was it? The Aspen was 5 of the top 10 most expensive real estate sales.
4 of the top 10 homes in the U.S. in the last month were
right, but this
1.5 square
this
miles
is an artifact of, we're going to see a lot more of that, right? I mean, because this point mass, everybody wants to purchase the same things, and then everybody can write a $50 million check, which is ridiculous. You're going to see absolutely absurd point mass concentrations of wealth doing very strange things. And that's a good example. And for the first time in history that I'm pretty sure in the first time in the series that there's half of the most expensive real estate sales in the U.S. in a single month were in a single city within 1.5 miles of each other. That's ridiculous.
Is that people that know each other that are billionaires that are like, oh, let's all go buy $100 million cabins? It's just, they just all want to be in Aspen.
They all want to be in Aspen. And they all want to be on the same freaking hillside on Red Mountain, which is the craziest part.
One thing that's really fascinating, I remember being in San Francisco when Twitter went public and Facebook and all those, and it minted millionaires. There was a couple of billionaires, but it was mostly millionaires. And what's so fascinating is the number of billionaires this time. You know, it's just, and it's 10 years. It's like, it's astounding. And those, I believe all of those companies, I mean, OpenAI, I think is still very questionable because of its valuation and its leadership and all the chaos and the fact.
I think you should be hugely bullish about nose rings. I think there's going to be a massive bull market in nose rings as all of these people start trying to find themselves and discover they need to grow their hair out and have nose rings, because buying boats just loses its charm.
Burning Man 2020. I'll tell you one thing: the Burning Man 2027 camp budgets are going to be through the roof.
Exactly, yurts, baby.
Well, I think that concludes our episode of the Nick, Dick, and Paul Show. And thanks for listening, and more next week.